Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RENNSPORT Nordschleife League, to the final race of Season 1, a 120-minute endurance round with some very interesting strategy decisions, I think, today. And to get you through this long evening for once, I will be joined by Tim Ireland.
Once? Wow, harsh. Hello, everybody.
Well, of course, always by my side, my trusty colleague, who isn't from Ireland, ironically. And
I'm not.
yeah, 120 minutes, long race. You will have stage points in the middle of the race. It's not the NASCAR type of stage points, but you will get some points for completing half the distance. In the championship standings, which we go through later on, we are right now in qualifying. And the title is heavily favored towards the driver we are watching right now, to Dominik Ladler. However, it could still throw a bit around in the later stages of the race and especially in the lower parts of the standings. And of course, this will also kind of work as a forecast for Season 2, which we will talk later on about. We will have plenty of time during a 2-hour race to do that, I presume. But I think I've introduced this long enough. Tim, what is your verdict for the race today, looking at the RFL races we also had last year?
Well, I mean, it's the longest race we've had here in the RNL this season, so we've got that coming, and it's GT3s, which everyone loves GT3 around the Nordschleife. It's just a classic combo. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of tactics people will be using with regard to stops, and if they decide to stop, when they decide to stop. There are a lot of choices to be made today, for sure. And I have no idea what any of the drivers are doing because I haven't talked to any of them before the race. So I have no unique insights to offer other than I have no idea what's going on. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, strategy will be very different to what we are used to in the RENNSPORT Nordschleife League and also its predecessor, the RENNSPORT Founders League. Because we don't have fuel consumption in this race, but of course the tires. I think nobody has really done a 2-hour stint on them. Will they be able to hold on? Will they maybe be faster if you change them midway? Those are questions we will surely get an answer on later in the race. But for now, it's purely about pace. Who's the fastest around the Green Hell, 25.7 kilometers of asphalt through the Eifel. And Dominik Ladler, the first car out. He's, of course, also our championship leader, making it a bit more interesting. But maybe let's have a look at who else is in here. Bill Wild is his first entry into this league in the Porsche. Will be interesting to see how he adapts. The two BMWs in front of him, those are Julian Schicko and Enrico Bräuninger.
We've had a lot of fancy liveries here today. People have upped their livery game. There's a lot of Founders liveries. We've got some EWC ones, as you can see. I think there's a Ali Zahir might be in his regular Dazzle livery. So it's good to see people mixing up with the liveries.
Yeah, I mean, he's also the lone representative of the AMG, and of course, usually using this Dazzle scheme, which I think looks pretty cool.
I like the Dazzle liveries. I think they're good. Dominik Ladler trying to confuse us by not even using a Porsche today, using the M4.
Well, in all fairness, he has been using the M4 a lot in the RENNSPORT Nordschleife League. He couldn't quite get up to grips with the Porsche through this track, but as the likes of Bill Wild, Timothy Fritsch, Radoslav Pionkiewicz, and Kimi Hapler will most likely show us that you can indeed throw Porsche through the turns quite quickly. Especially Kimi Hapler will be interesting to watch in this race, I think. Even though he's not taking part in qualifying. But that's also not the first time.
I noticed it skipped out of qualifying. But yeah, no Audis or Aston Martins here today, unfortunately. So not even a chance of a top 5 position from 5 manufacturers.
That is very true. We can still make it best 3 out of 3. But yeah, Audi. Of course, some of you might have seen the R1 starting yesterday, RENNSPORT R1. Now with Aston Martin instead of Audi. But it is a very interesting change, I think, and we still see some very fast Audis in the community. So I'm looking forward to see them. Tomorrow we will see more racing, but without an Audi. But only with BMW M2s and Praga R1s for a 45-minute sprint at Hockenheim. So the racing action won't stop today. It will continue into tomorrow.
It's an interesting combo, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that plate lays out, because the Praga is a fast car, but it's tiny, and those M2 drivers are going to have to watch out because they're going to be surrounded by hornets at some point.
That's a very good analogy. It's like those flies and stuff you can't really get off of you, and they're just annoying and loud. But yeah, with the Aero, the Praga has the general pace advantage. Will indeed be very interesting. But today we only got GT3s. Everybody on even playing field. And we are waiting the first lap times to come in soon. Dominik Lada will be the first one to make his way onto the Döttinger Höhe. And the Döttinger Höhe has really delivered in this season. A lot of slipstream fights in all kinds of cars. We've seen Ali Zahir against, I think it was Julian Chicot in the GT4 class. Lala against Chicot in the GT3 class. Those were a lot of fun.
Seems to be a lot of Julian Chicot involved there. Is he the slipstream master?
Now that you bring it up, yeah, good point. Let's see what this race will show us, even though Julian Chicot has not finished qualifying. So maybe had an impact into the wall there with this car. Now through Tiergarten.
It's not a big field, so starting at the back of the grid isn't going to be a massive detriment, I don't think. And they're all pretty well-known names, so I'm gonna say it should be fairly clean for the first couple of corners.
Yeah, we've seen some good starts before. Dominik Lala putting in an 8:12. That is a very respectable time. Alizai crossing line 8:14. That's 1.6 seconds off. As always, keep in mind, it's the Nordschleife we are talking about. 1.6 seconds might be 1.5 tenths on any other track. As Bill Wild is now going through Hohenrhein. I think Timothy Fritsch will post the lap time before. Bit of pace there. Can the second Porsche do? Also a bit of pace from 8:45. Oh, and Pironkovic, he has really put the car into the wall there on the front left.
Oh yeah, that is not a factory fresh Porsche.
As long as he can keep it on the track in the race, he will be fine. So, yeah, unfortunate in qualifying, you can see him struggle on the straight line. The rear, yeah, I'd say about 30 to 45 degrees to the left. That is not pleasant to drive.
I think that's what racing drivers call left hand down.
The Indy setup. But yeah, that is qualifying for you. We've got Dominik Lala on top of the timing sheets. We've got Ali Zaya in second, then the two Porsches of Fritsch and Bill Wild. And then it's BMW, Porsche, Porsche, BMW. And we will also have a rolling start again. So that will be interesting to observe. If this will play into anyone's favor.
In the top 3, I've said it.
Ah, thank you, thank you. I nearly forgot. Shall we do picks or shall we just let it play out?
I think we should just let it play out. I don't want to curse anyone any more than I already have done with my turns 1 and 2 comment. That's...
Right, here we go. 60 kph. to the line. And it seems like we are missing Enrico.
Yeah, Enrico Browning has got DNS right now.
Apparently his PC crashed, but that means we are still with 7 cars to start the race. And leading them to the line is Dominik Ladler. And we go racing for the final time in Season 1. And it's a drag race towards Turn 1. I think Timothy Fritsch had the better of the two Porsches in terms of start. Dominik Ladler leading them down to Turn 1 though. Alizar diving to the inside. Seems like there's no contact. And that's Kimi Harpla. He started in 7th, already up to 3rd.
Yeah, it was a fantastic start by Kimi there to make up some of the early ground.
Still side by side for the lead. Now going into Ford Curve. Dominik Ladler braking later. Alizar getting better exit. And it seems like Alizar here might take the lead in this race. But he's backing out of it. Showing himself in the mirror. And look at how close the top 3 are. And Timothy Fritsch just hanging in there.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a leading group of 4 drivers right now, but they haven't even got off the GP track yet, so you can't really say too much.
The interesting part begins where the green hell starts. But what a start by Kimi Harpla, and valiant effort by Alizar to try to get the lead early, but Dominik Ladler just a bit too good on the defensive side here. But we've seen both of them deliver in this series. And now we go into the green hell, onto the Nordschleife. And it wouldn't be the first time we see battles drag out for multiple laps, I think, today.
No, well, hopefully we'll get a bit more of that. I'm sure Ali Zahir will be putting his best foot forward for keeping up with Dominik Ladler, and he's doing a good job so far. And I think today's race could be as much about what they decide to do with pit strategy as anything.
It could be the decisive point here. I mean, if we think back to, I think it was AFL Season 3 with the TCR cars. Of course, the TCR cars very, very different to a GT3 in many ways. But we had some interesting strategy decisions in that race, mainly by Dominik Ladler. Dominik Ladler at the moment is also pulling away, about a second to Alizar here. And Julian Chicot found his pace to be right with the two Porsches of Harpla and Fritsch.
Yeah, he's doing a good job of keeping the fourth spot in contention with the top 3 right now. Look forward to seeing how that develops.
Bill Wild.
Julian Chicot and it's 4th and 5th.
Bill Wild in 6th with huge damage to the front right. Don't know what happened there.
I saw him have a bit of an incident coming out of the 2nd sector, I think it was. So I know he had a bit of a grass tracking situation, ran his level, so did a bit of grass cutting there.
Well, with this race, of course, especially I think for those two, since it's their first entry into the series, it might be very useful to use it as a test session, basically, or a test bed for the next season. It's, of course, quite a long distance, not easy to do, 2 hours off the Nordschleife, but if you can get through the 2 hours of Nordschleife, and even if you have to repair your car once or twice, if you can make it through, you will be basically set for the next season in a good place. We will talk through the calendar a bit later on, and then you will see why, but the next season will, in essence, take what we've learned from Season 1 and hopefully improve on that. And we might have a special event in there.
Ooh. It's definitely a baptism of fire to choose to start on this round 2 hours of racing the Nordschleife in GT3s. It's bravo to both of them for choosing to take part. It's not an easy race to start to join into the series.
Pionkiewicz moved up the position into 6th. I wonder if he's actually broadcasting this from his own POV. Can tell you in a second.
Billy Wild is.
It seems like he is, unfortunately, but yeah, as you said, it's definitely an interesting decision in the way that it's very respectable to do that. And I think if they can do well here today, they can basically prove themselves already. And of course, if they finish half distance, they also already get a championship point, no matter if they make it to the finish or not. But now through the downhill, cars at the front have spread out a tiny bit. Chicot lost the pace a bit. He was wide through Bergberg. That lost him a lot of time through the run through Kesselchen, but it's only lap 1. We can expect 16 laps, about 15 or 16, depending on the race pace.
Yeah, the top runners have just got outside of drafting range now, which is probably what they were aiming to do, to try and make sure that nobody could close up or even overtake them on Dottinger. So they've got a bit of breathing room as far as that's concerned. But yeah, it's very early on in a 2-hour race, so you definitely can't rule anybody out just yet.
Yeah, of course, the main difference to R1 yesterday is not only the drivers we have, and Alisa now going right, exiting the small carousel, but mainly yesterday you had short 15-minute sprint races. You can go all attack throughout, but this is a 2-hour endurance race. If you put it into the wall in the first lap, you will have 2 hours to catch up for that mistake, but you of course don't want to catch up. You want to use the 2 hours to capitalize on other people doing mistakes. And we've seen this season that no matter how skilled the driver or how much experience they have, some of them just made mistakes. Untypical mistakes at times. Something that you wouldn't really have recognized, but of course with this season being the first one with damage enabled, yeah, that is a big change to adapt to. As we complete the first lap with Dominik Ladler in the lead, followed by Alisaya and Kimi Hapler. Do you want to repeat the manufacturer?
No, I think once is enough.
Okay, fair point. Cool thing about the Nordschleife is, of course, that while the cars are equal on pace over a lap, where they generate the lap time is very different, and that might mean you will see some Porsches, for example, catching up in the sections where you can really use the BA engine, notably the uphills, and in general the exits of slower corners like Hatzenbach. But with the BMW and AMG, they are much more likely to generate the lap time through the flowing turns, through the more high-speed sections of, for example, the part from Hohe Acht to about Schwalbenschwanz, I'd say. So each car has its own strength and weaknesses, and I think no track exposes them like the Nordschleife does.
No, it's a very, very big track, obviously.
Kimi Hapler just lost it. Timothy Fitch with that into third. But yeah, that's what we were talking about. Especially on the Grand Prix circuit, I would have never put any money on Kimi Hapler spinning in the Grand Prix part of the track.
No, I would have thought would have known that part of it pretty well by now. But it's a race and things happen. He's got a lot to worry about and think about at the same time. But yes, as you were saying, the Nordschleife is a very long track with a lot of very different sectors. So some of them do favour other cars, one car manufacturer over another one. And the times will fluctuate a little bit as we go around the lap, even if they were doing the same lap time in different cars, you would see the gaps opening and closing.
Astro and Chico's now losing it. Maybe too close to the limit there by some drivers.
Speaking of close to the limit, Ali Zahir has purple sectors 1, 2 and 3 so far. So he's on for a fairly good lap time.
Yeah, Lisa really on a run. 3 purple sectors, that's not a bad outlook. And he's going really aggressive. You could see 2 tires into the grass going into Metzgesfeld. He's counter-turning the car on corner entry. If you don't know what I mean by that is, if you have a right-hand turn, you slightly steer to the left for a short moment to weight transfer the car and turn in right. So by the point where you basically would usually turn in, you already have the load on the left-hand side tires. And he's going right to the edge of the track.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't want to lose touch with Dominic Ladley here, does he?
And he's catching. I think you gained about 2 to 4/10 in the recent few sectors going. I wouldn't go that far through right side, but Alizai is making it work, and he's making it look kind of effortless. It's absolutely stunning to watch.
He is a bit of a specialist in the AMGs, Ali Zahir, isn't he? I don't think I've seen him drive anything else. I cannot drive the AMG to save my life, so I stay away from it.
Well, I'm also not the fastest in it, but it is usually a very beginner-friendly car with a high skill ceiling. I mean, if you take a look at the real 24-hour Nordschleife or NLS races, you see more senior drivers in this car. It's a bit of the go-to senior car. A few years ago, that might have been the M6, but nowadays it's more the AMG. It's definitely built with the intention of being drivable by a lot of people, but giving a select few of people the option to extract a lot of pace from it, and Alizai is one of those people, definitely. And the gap has come down to 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, Ali, he's really been monstering it this lap. He's, as you just said, the gap's come down about 6/10 now, 7/10. So he's been putting in fantastic lap. He's got 5 purple sectors out of the 6 they've completed.
He had misfortune in the start of the season. If you think he drove the Porsche actually, I think in the first GT3 race, and I'm not quite sure what exactly happened, but he had the very damaged car. He had to crap through the Nordschleife for, I don't know, 20 minutes because he had damaged rear left suspension. And later on in the season had some good shots, but always compromised in the GT4 race, made a good comeback in the end, being slightly overpowered by Julien Chicot with his high IQ move there down the Dirtinger. But he's proven himself again to be kind of back last Saturday in RCL, where he capitalized on other people's misfortune.
He's just creeping into drafting range as though coming up to the Dottinger Hohe, so he's timed that pretty much perfectly.
But too far on the grass. This was too much. You're not coming back from that.
Sorry, Ali. I did it.
Did it together, I think. But yeah, that is his advantage over the lap gone. And Timothy Fritsch in the background is coming in hot. Geilenkopf is just... It can be very cruel at times. You have off camber, you need to hit it perfectly because you have the Dirtinger Höhe, so a mistake there will cost you for about 30 seconds of driving. And even if you just slightly touch the grass because of the off camber, because of the car being very unloaded, because you have the track basically going away from beneath you, yeah, it's very ungenerous, let's say, towards the driver doing a mistake there.
Yeah, and it's a corner you really want to push out of in your head because of the Dottinger Hohe coming up. You want to just get every extra kilometre an hour you can out of the car because it all gets magnified down the straight.
But the race is long. There's still a lot of chance to come back from it. And we've also seen in the last GT3 race the unthinkable Dominic Lalla doing a mistake, so he is not safe from doing that later on. Which doesn't mean I want to curse him to do one, no. But we've seen Kimi Harplas win in this race, which is already a good enough indication of what we can expect from a 2-hour race. Currently in 4th, 6 seconds to Timothy Fritsch. If we look further down...
He was about 7 seconds behind a couple of sectors ago, so he's been closing up gradually to Timothy Fritsch. We might see a battle with them two before long.
Bill Wild about to complete his second lap. Not coming into the pits yet with his damage, so maybe it is Kangan. Arislav Pionkovic, pretty much the same damage, so he's also put it into work quite hefty. And I think left hand down is also something that applies here.
If you want to take any kind of shares out in Porsche spares, now might be the time.
Well, the right-hand side parts might be a bit more expensive than the left-hand side ones at this point, but yeah. A lot of corners that are really dangerous on this track are right-hand side turns, so it makes sense. I think the most prominent left-hand turn is the Mutkur.
Ali Zahir's mistake seems to have lit a bit of a bonfire under Timothy Fritsch, who's been continuing to close the gap up on Ali Zahir. I think it's a case of out of sight, out of mind, and now he's back in sight again.
I wonder if Ali Zahir may have taken some suspension damage as well, because he brushed the wall on multiple occasions. It's very hard to get the car away from that. But while the outside might not be really damaged, you can still mess up your suspension geometry. And that can really make the car very unpredictable to drive.
Yeah, for sure.
And meanwhile, Joachim Thunder, who's still is, or get well soon, is saying the carousel is the most prominent turn. That is very true, but it's not typically a place where you would crash. Although, Kimi Harplam may have debunked that fact with his topple over in the last race. Helped by Ron to a certain degree, but yeah, maybe he's right with that. So apparently accidents happen there as well. This right-hander actually having a second nickname, of course, official name is Kallenhardt, but some people refer to it as Death Corner. Because as soon as it gets slightly red, people overestimate it on the Touristenfahrten and just go straight, in a way, that you don't really want to go straight.
It's an expensive time.
Yes. I really like to drive that turn though. It's very rewarding, especially in a car like the R8 or 911 where you can turn the car for a short moment basically at a very hard angle and then just push out of the turn. Aliza seems to have found at least a good baseline pace again, because Timothy Fridge isn't necessarily closing in anymore. Still seems to be...
Jimmy Harpler seems to have dropped way back. So I'm assuming he had a bit of an incident there.
Oh yeah, the front left quite damaged. It's a good thing he won't really need that front light in this race. It might get a bit darker through the day. At the moment it's about 9:30 in-game time. But we will run, if I'm not mistaken right now, to 8 PM in-game time. But Alizaya, let's hope the car is still in good condition for his quest for P1.
Timothy Frisch making a bit of a charge again in the last couple of sectors. He's closed up the gap a little bit more. Now on the long uphill section, which might favour his Porsche a bit more than the AMG, like you were saying before.
But here comes the downhill. I've recently been to the Nordschleife and I've also observed a bit at this point we are coming through right now. Some might refer to it as YouTube corner, but it's called Brünnchen. And when you stand there, you really feel like standing next to a roller coaster and seeing the cars go through at very insane speed. Even cars we wouldn't expect to be very fast, they have some good speed on this section. You have the downhill, and of course with the uphill into the braking zone you can brake even later. It's just a very awesome spot to take a look and yeah, observe the cars, the drivers. And the sound of the curbs is actually very, very interesting if you are there in real life.
You always seem, curb sounds always seem louder in real life kind of footage of motor racing, I find, than the sim races.
Yeah, the main difference of course being that in footage you're usually outside of the car.
Yeah, that's true.
Having experienced both now, in the car, of course you feel it, you hear it, but it's not as loud as on the outside where it's really... On most cars you can very much hear that. Even though we also had a Mustang flying by, the new Mustang, I don't know which spec it was exactly, but definitely the Coyote V8. As Timothy Fridge is now slowly creeping in on Alizaya with the slipstream. But you couldn't really distinguish, was that the curb or the engine? Because they kind of have the same frequency.
Well, Alizaya going defensive here. Obviously sensing a bit of a threat already.
Seems like Timothy Fritsch is also setting himself up for a move into turn 1. He went out of slipstream. And is now right on the bumper of Alizar. Bit of an oversteer moment. Out of Hohenrhein.
He dropped back a little bit, but he's catching up again slowly.
I think he's too far away.
Yeah, he can't quieten Alizar here. Went a bit defensive. I was just going to say that if you're planning to outbreak a Porsche, then you're generally in a bit of a losing situation.
Unless you are in an R8. Those two cars very equal on braking performance. They of course both share the advantage that when you brake you load the front tires, but you still have a majority of the weight of on the rear axle, the Porsche more so than the R8 of course, but due to the short wheelbase on the Audi it's still very effective. If you take a long GT3 for example, the Ferrari is quite long and the McLaren is quite long in that sense. They don't have this effect as much as the i8 does. And that's why you can use the rear tires more to slow the car down, basically. With the AMG, BMW, and Aston Martin, of course, front mid-engine. Technicality, of course, everybody just says front-engined. You have to use the front tires a lot harder, which also comes with its own advantages, but in terms of braking performance, always at a slight disadvantage. Timothy Fritsch all over the back of Alizar now.
Yeah, Ali's taking a lot of defensive lines, which is obviously compromising his exits a little bit. But Timothy Fritsch not able to get past quite yet. I wonder if Timothy Fritsch was watching any of the R1 yesterday for some Porsche driving tips from the Porsche Commander guys.
I think he has his own set of tools at hand to use. Of course, you can take a look at one. I know that Enrico is a person who really does that, taking a look at what R1 drivers do with the BMW and looking for places to improve, as Timothy Fritsch took a bit too much curb there through Flugplatz and lost a bit of time.
Unfortunately, Kimi Harpler has decided to call it a day and has pulled it into the pits.
It's our first DNF during the race. I think for Timothy Fritsch, he basically has to get close for Döttinger and then just make a slipstream pass on Alizar here. That would probably be his best bet. And Kimi Harplanchett also saying it was due to damage received. And that Ali indeed has some damage in aero. And we've seen that before, it does slow you down on the straights, especially the Kesselchen section in Döttinger Höhe.
Yeah, it doesn't take much damage for it to start to kind of pile up a little bit when it comes to the straights. It does start to be detrimental to your straight line speed.
It will be interesting to see how close Timothy Fritsch gets on the uphill. I don't expect him to just lob it into Mutkurve. That's not really what Timothy Fritsch does usually. But
no, that's true.
Is he showing himself? Is Ali going to go defensive? As Ali goes a bit wide. Also one of the most crucial exits to get through Bergwerk cleanly. perhaps even more crucial than on dodging a hill, because you don't really get to top out due to the incline.
Timothy Fritsch flashing his lights, letting Ali know that he's thinking about it. Ali positioning his car pretty well there. Not really a call you'd expect to try and overtake, to be honest.
Looked a bit sketchy for Timothy Fritsch there for a moment, exiting Moodkurve and then through the right-hander. We are being a bit loose, but managed to hold on to it. But here we go again with the 2.
One of the things I suppose these guys haven't had to deal with so much on the Nordschleife is following closely behind someone. It's a very different experience to driving the Nordschleife by yourself. You really have to kind of nail your turning in points and your braking points without really being able to see them, which on a shorter track you can get into a bit more of a rhythm and kind of figure it out that way. Whereas with the Nordschleife being so big, you have to just kind of know by driving sixth sense.
And what makes the Nordschleife possible so different and in a different style to drive. Meanwhile, there's been a question in chat regarding lap times, and the lap times at the moment are about 8:11 to 8:14 across the top 4. Dominic Lala holding the fastest lap of the race currently in 8:11.5. That's the second faster than his qualifying time. And this pair of Alizai and Timothy Fritsch, 8:12 and 8:14 respectively.
Timothy Fritsch just throwing in a purple sector 6. Maybe with the help of a big fat AMG in front of him.
That definitely will have affected in his lap time. Oh, and Alizai again right out of the small carousel and spinning, collecting Timothy Fritsch, and that was a mistake we've seen before by Alizai, going very wide out of the small carousel. Let's hope that this doesn't have too much. Oh, and Alizai is beached on the curb.
Oh, it gets worse for Alizai here.
Very misfortunate. Where's Julian Chico? Julian Chico right now through Bell of S now into Schwalbenschwanz. We will have to be very aware of the yellow flags, and it seems like Alizai, he's slightly moving.
He is. That's it. Just watch out for that BMW, Ali. Thank you.
Leaves a lot of space for Jun to go. But, very unfortunate. Now, what's the damage on the car? That's, I think, one of the most evil traits of the curbs here at the Nordschleife. They are just able to trap you in your own car.
They are very, very tall. So yeah, it's surprisingly easy to get your car stuck on a curb here.
So basically what happened was Alizai went too early out of the small carousel, clipped the grass, nearly catched it, but in the meantime, Timothy Fritsch is nowhere to go. And once you get stationary on those high curbings, they are able to lift your rear axle as high that you can't really get off of them. We've seen that in the season as well, I think, from Enrico Borneo. And I've also seen it across many different platforms, and I have seen it in real life as well. It's just nasty. Because the curbs on the Nordschleife, of course, they are not your typical racing curbs, standardized height and all of that. No, they are proper old curbs in many places.
Alizai here in the pits for some repairs right now to his poor AMG.
Putting him some fresh rubber as well. Enrico unfortunately experienced a PC crash. That's why he couldn't take part in this race. Bill Wild and Radoslav Pionkovic still in this race, which is good to see.
Well, he should be able to get out in front of Billy Wild here, I think. Just about to be put down from the air jacks.
Let's have a look. It's released from the pits now.
It's gonna be close.
Out of the pits, we can hear the Porsche. And that's Bill Wild into fourth. I think Alizaya, especially with now a repaired car, should reclaim that position quite quickly on. Does right now already, with Bill Wild a bit too eager on the throttle there. But yeah, that puts Julian Chicot into third and Alizaya nearly 2 minutes behind the BMW.
But he's at least got fresh tyres on his car.
That will definitely be an advantage over the long time. Because if people at the halfway mark decide to not change tires, we don't know if they will hit a cliff. We don't know if they will suddenly degrade, if they will degrade over time. It's very much an open book. I think that will be interesting. And Alizar here will always have the advantage of about half an hour of fresher tires, or 45 minutes nearly of fresher tires. So he doesn't have to worry about it. He should be pretty much safe to just go to the end with those.
Yeah, he should be able to. As long as he keeps it on the grey part of the track, he should be fine from now. Dominic Ladler up front. He's got a bit of a buffer now. Back nearly 17 seconds back to Timothy Fritsch. So he's backed up a little bit on pace. He's obviously seen the pace Timothy Fritsch did last lap with the contact with Alizar here. So no point taking too many risks. Might as well save his tyres and make sure he doesn't stick it in the wall.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with a number of cars now who would have been in a very different position. But maybe this is also a good time to take a look at the current standings in the championship. And there we have them. Dominic Ladler in P1. It's 24 points over Julian Chicot. If he just finishes this race, he is pretty much guaranteed to win, or not pretty much, he is guaranteed to win the championship. But he also did a stellar job this season. If we take a look at his results, it's P1 in race, I think, every race except the last one in the M2 was a victory for the car with the number 1. So, yeah, it would be hard to argue that this would be very well deserved. But if we look further down, Julian Chicot, 41, Enrico Boininger, 40, Alizar, 35. Enrico Boininger, unfortunately, not able to drive because of his PC crash. That means Alizar, as long as he finishes, he is on the podium. But depending where he finishes in relation to Julian Chicot, we still have 1 hour and 20 minutes to go. He might get close to the man from Poland.
Timothy Frisch currently in second on this race as well, so he's He's only 10 points behind Alizar here.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, the point system, of course, consisting of a constant point score and the number of drivers you beat in the race. So second at the moment would mean he has 6 cars behind him that he has beaten, plus another 6 points. And we have the bonus for completing half distance and completing the race. So there's still quite a number of points up for grabs. So he's technically in with a shot. But I think he would need Ali Zahir to really have a miserable race from now on, which we of course don't hope will be the case. But that's Timothy Fish's only chance to get into the top 4. He would still move past Remco Major though.
Yeah, Remco choosing not to take part in today's race, which is a bit long, maybe for him. So he's at the mercy of the points gods, as it is today.
With that 1 points difference, all that Timothy Fish basically would have to do is finish 1 hour of this race, which is in, well, it's 18 minutes, so 3 more laps and he is tied for 5th already. But for our 2 newcomers, this would also of course be interesting. Bill Wilde and Werner Slavoskat, if they can make it to the finish line, they will jump a good amount of positions. Which I think is definitely something worth going for. Ali Zahir, in the meantime, is closed in by 3 seconds to Julian Chico. His last lap is of course the out lap with a 9:18. We'll let you know what this lap was as his first flying lap. It seems like he's right back on pace. Gap to Dominic Ladler stayed about consistent, and Ladler is doing 13th at the moment. 6 seconds faster than Fridge, and another 2 faster than Chico. And of course, he lost 30 seconds in repairs in the pit stop, but if Chico or Fridge decide to do a pit stop, that will bring him close.
Do you think someone like Timothy Fritsch would be willing to gamble on not pitting for the entire race?
It's a tough question.
See if they can do 2 hours on one set of tires.
I think all the drivers have a good feel for intuitive decisions on that, just going by how the car feels. And if we take Dominic Ladler, for instance, just as a comparison, he usually surprised me the other way around. I thought, for example, in the TCR race I mentioned earlier, but also I think in one of the GT3 races, that he is not going to pit, that he's going to stay out. And he was the first one to pit, or did the 2-stopper in the GT3 race. So, of course, that was with fuel as a factor, so that was a bit different. But yeah, it's very hard to really gauge by experience, because we really haven't seen much in this length on the current set of tires, because of course the tires are pretty new still, and we haven't had a race of this magnitude. Meanwhile, Ali Zahir's last lap is not quite updated yet. Oh no, sorry, this was his outlap in 9:56, but he indeed gained a bit on Julian Chico on that outlap. About 3 seconds. And Rico also pointing out in chat he wouldn't have pitted. Not sure what the preparation looks like on many of the drivers. But either you have to find out the hard way in this race, whether you should have pitted or not, or you will take the lucky gamble. I think the consequences of your decisions will also be very apparent late in the race. And at that point you kind of pass the point of no return. With a lap, a lap like the Nordschleife being this long. If you notice, my tires are not that good, and you're right now in Hudson-Bach, you're still looking at 6 minutes of driving until you are back at the pits. So it's... Do you go the safe way? I think it will also heavily depend on the gaps we have. Timothy Fitch at the moment, if he goes into the pits now, he would end up behind Julian Chicot. Chicot, on the other hand, he wouldn't be behind Ali Zahir, and he would have fresh tires.
It's very true.
So Chicot would have a way easier time to gamble than the likes of Fritsch and Lade, because they each would lose a position. With the stop for tires, you can roughly calculate at the Nürburgring with its pit lane 50 seconds, I think. So that is quite some time.
Anybody planning to do a one-stop strategy will probably be thinking of coming into the pits in the next few laps, I would think. So we'll get a bit of an idea of how people are playing the game.
Yeah, of course, it would only make sense to really split the race in half, perhaps. But we have also seen interesting developments throughout races in the past with the new tires. I think the most notable being, for example, in the FDRL League, being Kimi Hapler finding a lot of pace on old tires, which other people couldn't quite do. So it is also a bit car dependent, driver dependent. And
that's very true.
Might not be the same for everyone in this race. And with...
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting one with them not having the experience on the tyres and knowing whether they've got pace on worn tyres or not. There's going to be a lot of questions answered, I think, today.
And of course also with the changes in car balance, basically. If you wear your tires, your car balance will naturally shift depending on what car you drive, more to the rear, more to the front. In the BMW, the fronts will wear more than the rears, and the Porsche you might experience some more wear on the rear axle, making it very twitchy, very aggressive. So maybe Timothy Fitch goes into the pits just to keep it safe on the road. In the end, a 2-hour race is a 2-hour race. And yeah, even though you get the points at the half of the race, basically, you don't want to put it into the wall after that. You want to make it to the finish line. still have 10 minutes left to go until we award the first points. Let's check out our two newcomers, Swaroslav Pionkiewicz. He's still soldiering on. I think he has some suspension damage on the front, apart from, of course, the obvious aero damage, but that doesn't seem to be too bad. He's still soldiering on in 5th and 6th, because in 5th we have Bill Wilder with his damage from the opening lap, but seems to have kept it out of the wall after that. And of course, if you come into the pits later on, you might as well repair that front end of the 911. Helps a bit with the understeer as well if you got aero helping you through the turns. And yes, this race misses the blue Mercedes, which of course is written by the person writing it in the chat, Adrian Lunio. But we are missing quite a few drivers, unfortunately, due to illness or not being at home. Notable is Maximilian Dehn, the first champion on this track back in the RENNSPORT Founders League. He's won quite a lot in that race, didn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's fast everywhere, but he seems to have particular pace at the Nordschleife. So we're missing Max Dean showing everyone how it's done.
One fight I'm definitely looking forward to, and I think we might see it in the next season with what we got in place, would be Maximilian Dehn. Oh, and Pionkiewicz into the wall and Adenauer Forst. Slowed it down though, so shouldn't be too bad. But Maximilian Dehn against Remco Major. I've seen that a few times, and it always has been very interesting to watch.
Yeah, we've had some fun races over the season, haven't we? It's been a good season, and it's been good to kind of test out a few of the other cars on the Nordschleife and see these guys taking it and putting up fights with all the different types of cars.
Yeah, I think the Founders League, of course, was its spiritual predecessor to the Nordschleife League. There was some self-fuck by Wonder and Hood and Chat as well. Yeah, the fights were entertaining too, but we missed them on the Nordschleife. We haven't really seen them here. But yeah, I think the fact that we now have damage enabled, as Dominik Lala is gonna make his way past Swaroslav Pionkiewicz to put a lap on the drivers, a bit more on the grass right now. But yeah, it's, I think, a good thing we had damaged on now. I think it really changed a lot in how these races play out. I wouldn't have expected, let's say, the DNF reasons we had throughout the season, especially at the start. Because fuel was always a factor, and still we had someone running out of fuel in the first race. So it's been very interesting, man. I think for season 2, not only did we learn very important stuff to improve on it, but I think also the drivers, we've seen it through the season, got more used to it, were able to run the races in a better way. Definitely looking forward to seeing that continue. And if you're already talking about season 2 and implications on it, why don't we just take a look at what it will have in store for us, shall we? There we go. there is RENNSPORT Nordschleife League Season 2. And we will kick it off not with GT3, because we will end this one on a GT3 race. It will kick off with the BMW M2. I think it was one of the most entertaining races in the first season. And the race distance will be a bit shorter for the different classes. Going down to 45 minutes. And as other, let's say, support classes, is that doing them justice? I don't know. But we will have a GT4 back again and the Porsche Cup. Porsche Cup has quite a lot of fans out there in the sim racing world. And yeah, it will be quite some time until we get there. But it will be very interesting to see that car around the Nordschleife. I really like watching Porsche Cup racing in general. It's very interesting. It's, of course, a series where everybody has kind of the same material to work with. But it's really a car you can drive in so many different forms.
Yeah, it's always been a bit of a sim racing favourite is the Porsche Cup. I'm sure some of the more Porsche specialists out there might have a little bit of an advantage, but it'll be great to see it charging around the Nordschleife and getting ridiculous speeds on Nottingham.
Yeah, and to round this chapter off, as you can see, with the yellow marking in race number 6, a 144 minute race that is 2.4 hours. It will be back this year, the 2.4 hour Nordschleife, full day night cycle, full everything. And I'm really looking forward to that day night cycle, to be honest, because we recently, I think we fixed the bug with the headlights, so those shouldn't be really an issue anymore.
No.
And
no.
the last
For anyone who,
yeah, go ahead. So,
I was just going to say, for people who didn't know, we had a bit of a bug with headlights where they weren't getting repaired in the pits, and that has gone. I think we've fixed that now, so headlights should be back again. And it kind of stopped us doing night races.
yes. And on the flip side as well, the last 2.4 Nordschleife we had, it was an absolute banger race. It had action, it had drama, it had everything. And I think it was also won by Maximilian Dehn. But we had those showdowns between two drivers all the time. Also had a bit of a crash for Joachim Thunder. Oh, and one second. Did I see that
again?
Piwonkiewicz was also stuck on the curb entering Gallenkopf?
Yes.
Well, at least he's moving again.
He had another accident, and as you can probably tell, his Porsche's not wholly there. Even more so than it used to be. And he had a bit of a beaching situation on the curbs, but he seems to have got going.
But, well, we are approaching the 1 hour mark in 1 minute. And we still have 6 out of 8 cars driving. So they will all collect a point for the championship standings. We'll also, of course, slightly rework the point system for the next season. There's been a lot of wishes for qualifying bonuses and fastest lap. So we took that into account. But more on that will be in the Discord. So all updates regarding the leagues, let it be RENNSPORT Nordschleife League, the community leagues, or all the other community run leagues like FDRL. We have 2 new leagues coming up in the next time, in the next few weeks, which will be interesting. One being a GT3 league, the other one a Porsche Cup league. I'm looking forward to that, and it's also nice to see more community engagement again. But maybe if we're already talking about RENNSPORT Community League, let's just have a small rundown on the next steps there. We've just went through Spa at the 22nd of March. So the next one, next week, will be at Monza, the Temple of Speed. And yeah, Monza, I think, never really underdelivered. Do you have anything to expect for that?
I'm never shy in saying that I don't really like driving Monza, but it does always produce great racing. I'm happy to watch other people race at Monza any day of the week.
To be honest, I totally
So
understand
yeah,
what you mean.
so yeah, the Spa race was really good. So I'm obviously carrying on looking forward to Monza. I think it will be equally as great.
And it also kicks off the second half of the season, which is then followed up by Daytona. I mean, you know me, I absolutely love Daytona. Huge fan. And then we will have the community vote back again. So keep your eyes open for that one, because you will be able to vote the final track. If you want to annoy a certain Joachim Thunder, always make sure to vote for Road Atlanta if it's in the selection. But apart from that, it was very interesting and actually very tight last time around. Lots of different preferences in the track choice. So let's see what this time will be our final race. It's definitely something I really like to include. But
I think it's been good having the community vote in there for the previous times we've done it.
yeah, I think it's also cool if you do have some preferences. You can basically make your vote count for the final race. It of course has championship implications. But back to the Nordschleife. We take a look at the standings. Alizar here, currently 140 seconds behind Julian Chicot, so that gap has grown a bit again. Slap times, though, 2 seconds slower than Julian Chicot, who found his rhythm, I think. Julian Chicot currently on a good run. He's been very consistent with the 820s. The last lap one was actually his fastest in the race. Can see the occasional purple sector plopping up, for example, for Dominic Ladler in Sector 5 this lap. So, while people are just driving in their rhythm and basically keep it in shape, they're also not shying away from putting in the pace.
Yeah, and like you said, Julian Chicot put his fastest lap in last lap. He's put a couple of green sectors in this lap, so he's not letting off. And like we were saying before about tyre wear affects your car balance, some people might actually prefer it with a bit of wear, and changing the balance to something that they more preferred as compared to the driving style.
And driving style is a huge part of it in many ways. Not only do your driving style have to fit to the car you're driving, I think that's the most obvious, but also the track itself. On some tracks, a certain driving style works much better than others. You can make use or have a bigger advantage if you have a more aggressive driving style on certain tracks. And the Nordschleife is kind of everything. Some corners you will have a big advantage if you can attack the corners more aggressively, if you can really dive into them. What comes to mind for me is example the Wehrseifen complex. So after the triple right-hander, you dive into Wehrseifen, get the car rotated very quickly, drive out of it. If you can't do that, you will lose time. But on the other hand, if you always have that very aggressive driving style, you will struggle through the very fast and smooth turns, which are, especially in the downhill section after Hohe Acht, a big part of it, basically. Some people struggle to go flat out now after Sprunghügel, where Timothy Fritsch is right now. Very crucial part to keep your foot down to really get good lap times, but some people struggle with it. Just can't quite adapt to it with the car being unloaded on the front Sunday.
Dominic Ladler just coming up to finish his lap number 8, start his lap 9. See if he comes into the pits this lap or decides to stay out.
Now into Hohenrhein. We'll see in just a moment. And he's staying out. So Dominic Ladler, not one of the drivers who really decides to change tires.
And you would have thought if he was going to change tyres, that would have been the time he would have done it. But you never know. It might be a decision he lives to regret and has to come in later on to put some fresh rubber on his car.
Timothy Fritsch also staying out. I think the most interesting driver in that sense will be Julian Chicot, because he has the time advantage over Alizai to come into the pits, and he also has a 50-second gap to Timothy Fritsch, which is very unlikely to really be overcome by him. Because even with 8 more laps, he would have to gain, what, about 6-7 seconds a lap? And on Timothy Fritsch, I don't see that happening.
No, Timothy Fritsch, I was about to say, has a pace advantage, but I don't think he does anymore. The last lap by Julian Chicot was slightly faster than Timothy Fritsch's lap, but it's only time math hard. 0.6 seconds, there we go.
That was your biggest struggle?
So yeah, you would have to start going significantly faster than Timothy Fritsch to start closing the gap up. But yeah, if Timothy Fritsch decides to pit, then it can become a very different game.
It's a bit of damage to the front and also the right quarter panel of Timothy Fritsch. It's nothing major. I think it might just be what's left over from the contact with Ali. But it doesn't seem to impact him that much. I mean, if you said 6/10 a lap, that's then... I again forgot what we calculated. That's quick math. 4.8 seconds over the remaining time. That's not too much in relation to what the gap actually is. I don't really see that coming down unless Timothy Fritsch does a mistake, and I don't want to say it, but I kind of have to because I'm getting paid to talk on this.
Started the sentence now.
No backing out of it, but Timothy Fritsch is, I think, alongside Dominic Ladler, one of the drivers we have seen the least mistakes from. Maybe throw in Piotr Zadaibel, and you have the 3 drivers who never really see pointing into the wrong direction. Well, I may have pointed him into the wrong direction yesterday, but apart from that, they are really, really good at what they do in staying on the track. Might not be always the fastest straight and pace. Dominic Ladler is the fastest car on track at the moment, but he has been beaten in terms of pace quite a lot of times in the RCL, for instance, by the likes of Maximilian D and Remco Major. But he always claimed it back by just being pure consistent. Timothy Fritsch did the same.
Yes.
So
yeah, they are both very consistent drivers. So yeah, I also don't want to say that thing.
do it.
Like we've said many times this season, it's the Nordschleife. There's still 50 minutes left of this race, so anything can happen, really.
Dominik Lala and Timothy Fritsch in this race are two of the drivers we had for the longest time. I think they were both in, I mean Dominik Lala of course, but also Timothy Fritsch from the first event in RCL, if I remember, which is nearly a year ago at this point actually. And have also been, Dominik Lala definitely, but also Timothy Fritsch very active in pretty much all seasons and all races we had. So the interesting thing with those two is the development, I think. Dominik Lala was always fast right out of the box, and yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he has 4 RCL championships, an RFL championship under his name. The consistency and speed. But Timothy Fritsch at the start, he was always very consistent. Like, I don't remember any time where he wasn't consistent, but he really slowly gained the pace to where he is now running second. And, I mean, yeah, 40 seconds is maybe not a small gap, but to Dominik Lala, 40 seconds over 70 minutes of racing, that's not a lot. Like, especially since he has been fighting in this race with Ali Zaya and Julian Cheko before.
Yeah, he's one of the drivers we've seen developing in a fairly kind of pleasing fashion, really, over the races. I think the way he did start, always consistent and capable of keeping it mostly out of damage, mostly out of bad situations, I think was a very good starting point to be at, and then build the pace from there.
Yeah, I've once heard a sentence where, or a person, I don't know if it was sim racing related or real racing related, from a race driver nonetheless, that there are basically 2 types of people approaching their limit and the limit of the car. Ones go from the bottom, so they work their way towards the limit, which is something, for example, Timothy Richard, and then there's the other side. The people who basically go over the limit as long as they have to until they find it. And that's what we've seen from other drivers, which isn't bad in any form. You might do more mistakes, but in the end, both versions, of course, in real life, you want to do the first one because you don't want to wreck cars all the time. But in sim racing, you can approach it from both sides as long as you don't drag other people into it. And I think that's the cool thing about doing it digitally and learning where your limit is. I think one person that comes to mind doing it the other way around is for once Adrian Lunio at the start and Ronan Hood. I think those two did a bit of the other way around. But they all are fighting for wins now, and they all are names to be reckoned with as soon as somebody does a mistake.
Yeah, I've heard James Baldwin saying similar things about the big difference between how he approaches sim racing and real car racing. Is in sim racing, he's very much of the push past the limit, and that's where you know where it is kind of approach to gaining pace, which obviously you can't really do that in a real car without it becoming very expensive very quickly.
Yeah, I've once heard actually a story from Christian Abt. Of course, one of the Abt family, both in Formula E and GT3 and all that kind of stuff. And he told a story where he was at a practice day at the Lausitzring in Germany. It's a track that I really like, actually. and he was testing Formula 3 for his season. And they also had their GT3 program with the R8 LMS Ultra back then at the track. And he was then asking whether he could drive a GT3, and even though he wasn't allowed to, I think by his father or something, of course then Christian upped, he was put into the car nonetheless, and he tested it, and he was like, I don't know, a few tenths faster than the pros driving the car. But he just went over the limit into turn 3 and put it into the barrier, putting the car in basically half a barrel roll. And I think he said something that he didn't talk to his father for like a year or something. Or the other way around, his father not to him. Crazy story, if you listen to it, but it just shows, especially I think the younger you are, the more prone you are to it, but you can also approach it the other way. And you will be fast right out of the box, but then the consistency comes back into play. And that's what we see here today. Consistency is super important no matter how fast you are. I think Alizai was the fastest car on track at the start of the race, but with the mistake he did, with pushing too hard, he's down in 4th at the moment.
Obviously, the gap between Ali Zahir and Julian Sacco is pretty big because of his pit stop, but Ali is back lapping faster than Julian Sacco right now. His last lap was a 19.4, whereas Julian Sacco's was a 21.5. Timothy Fritch's last lap, just for completeness, was a 17.179. So Julian Sacco losing out a little bit of time to Timothy Fritch. But like we said earlier, is those kind of gaps are probably aren't going to be made on track, especially with 42 minutes remaining. You'd have to be going a fairly significant amount faster than the person ahead of you to start closing some of those gaps up, especially for Ali. The gap between him and Julian Sacco is currently 113 seconds.
Taking a look at our rookies, Bill Wild has actually repaired his car. So last lap he took the pit stop and now has a brand new front end on that Porsche 911 992. Pionkiewicz, I think he wasn't to the pits, yeah, he wasn't. Although he has collected some of front end damage. But he's still running. And both of them already, of course, have collected their first points with completing 1 hour distance.
I'm going to take a guess that Ali Zahir was planning to do a pit stop because he did a pit stop, which pit stops are a bit bugged right now, but he seems to have purposefully set his up so that he only took 1 litre of fuel on board. Obviously, you don't burn fuel at the minute, so any extra fuel you're taking on board is going to be essentially dead weight for the rest of the race. And the default pit stop is 40 litres of fuel, so he's obviously turned that right down to 1 litre.
It's a very good guess.
So I think he might have been planning a pit stop.
I mean, the good thing about the Nordschleife and the Döttinger Höhe is you get a lot of time to set things up. So
yes,
he may have changed that when he knew he had to go to the pits. But
that's true. He could have done it.
At least gives us room for speculation. But I think we will really see how this affects his race pace in about 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, you already said he's faster than Julian Chico if the tires should ever drop off within the next 2 laps about, then we will see how his lap times are relative to Dominic Lada and Timothy Fridge, which I think is the more interesting comparison.
That's fair. I mean, Dominic Ladler right now is still lapping in kind of 8-minute 12, so he's quite a lot faster than everyone else in the race right now. Unless he's burning his tyres pretty hard, he seems to have a pretty good handle on that BMW.
Yeah, the BMWs, the two we see, seem to be quite calm. I mean, I'm always kind of taking a look at how the car behaves, because I find that very interesting to observe in a race like this. And if you take a look at Ali Zahir most of the time, especially during that second lap, which he absolutely blasted through the Eifel, then you can see how much more aggressive he's driving that car. Never really letting the car rest on anything, he's pushing it through, and it worked very well for a long time. But if you take a look at the two BMWs, how Ladler and Chico are driving them, they are much more calm. They are not moving around as much. Pretty flat through the turns, so they are driving more steady, I'd say.
Yeah, the BMW does seem to be quite a stable package as far as driving is concerned. The Porsche, with all of its weight and power at the back, is always going to be a bit twitchier. Whereas the BMW always seems to be a fairly comfortable drive, as far as it just kind of goes where you want it to go, and you don't have to think about it too much, especially if you're not completely at the limit. So I think for longer races like this, it's definitely a pretty sensible choice.
Dominic, Aliza right to the rumble strips as well in mood goal. Yeah, Dominic Ladler actually argued for that reason why he's not driving his typical Porsche that we see in RCL and RCE usually. Because he just couldn't get the consistent pace out of the Porsche and couldn't quite keep it on track for that amount of time. That's why he went with the BMW. He might not have as much pace as with the Porsche, but he can make it safely through the races. So it wouldn't be the first time that somebody switches a car for a special occasion race.
Of course, the old racing adage of to finish first you have to finish comes into play, so it's definitely worth it on these kind of longer races to pick something you're comfortable with. Because as well, concentration becomes a thing. If you have to concentrate every corner trying to balance the throttle and the steering with something like the Porsche to get the most out of it, then any kind of lack of concentration or lapse of concentration by yourself can lead to it hitting the wall, and that can be pretty much a race over.
Can happen quite quickly, and especially the later in the race we go, the lower the concentration. And perhaps the hotter it is in the sim racing room with the PC turning into a heater at some point, or the wheelbase if you have a G29. I know what I'm talking about. Can really get quite hot to the point where you don't really want to touch the upper end of the wheelbase. But it's very interesting also to observe it by driver type. I mean, if you drive a Porsche on other tracks, you might expect the person to also drive the Porsche on Nordschleife for the natural feeling of it, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. For some drivers, it's easier to stick to a car, and for some drivers, it's easier to just adapt to a different car that suits the track conditions better. Of course, if you think about esports, most of them, if you are allowed to change cars in between tracks, will just go with whatever you can get the most pace out of. But in the sense of open competition, you might want to just go with what suits you best in that moment. And sometimes it's the car, and sometimes it's track specific.
I am terribly fast at adapting between, terribly bad at adapting between cars. So I tend to pick a car and stick to it.
So
That's what I
do
like to do, and that's what I go for. Unfortunately, I don't have the luxuries of such things as skill.
Well, you didn't do too bad in the FDRA race.
I didn't do brilliant either.
But I mean, I think we both are mainly driving R8, if I recall that correctly. I drive the occasional Porsche, but those cars just fit my driving style a lot. I have a very hard time getting to the limit in the BMW and Mercedes. I can't really feel the limit in those cars, but that doesn't mean that it's the car's fault. It's just that I'm inherently incompetent of coping with the front engine GT3. Although in other cars with front engine, that is definitely not the case. In GT3, I'm just not good enough for those, but therefore I always kind of had a good feeling with especially the shorter wheelbase mid-engined and rear-engine cars. Before...
You like your car to be a bit twitchier.
Yes. In Race Room, where I was before coming to RENNSPORT, the thing is, I was always an Audi fan. I grew up with the Mercedes versus Audi GTM era. So I kind of had to choose, and I wasn't a particular Mercedes fan at the time, so I chose Audi and stuck to it. And therefore, of course, I had to take the R8, and I really still like the Audi R8s. So I picked that one in Race Room many years ago as my main character car, basically. Stuck to it, and only later found out that people regarded it as the hardest car to drive back then. It basically had this characteristic where it was just occasionally kill you.
Yeah.
And many were afraid to drive it. And I mean, I would lie if I say I wasn't too at some times, but I just stuck to it, and it really grew on me, this kind of driving style. And with some updates, it really came natural as well with the oversteer. And yeah, since then I really kind of just drove mid and rear engined. I think other cars I switched to for some special races just for some fun was the Ford GT3, but like the old GT.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I think iRacing also has a similar car that Race Room had. That was a lot of fun. And what else did I drive? The 488 Ferrari and 720S. But rather on the rare side. I usually stuck to my R8 and 911 GT3s. And that really hasn't changed.
I came more from the ACC side of things, but I've always liked Lamborghinis, so I tried really hard to drive the Lamborghini Evo Huracan. I could not do it. I had to give up. So for a while, I used to drive the 720S, and then it became incredibly OP for no reason after an update. So whereas everyone else moved to it because it was OP, I immediately discarded it for another car. And I'd been driving the M6 for a long time until the M4 came out, which was immediately OP again, but then got nerfed. And I just found it a really stable car to drive. So I tended to use the M4 most of the time in ACC because I have kids and my practice time started going down, so I just needed something that I could drive fairly easily with a little amount of practice. And then when I got my RENNSPORT account, I'd decided I was a bit bored of the M4. I wanted to pick something else. And seeing as the Audi R8 is pretty much the same as the Lamborghini Huracan, I picked that.
I kind of did
No,
it a different way with the OP car because the Audi was always, it was a very fast car, but it was not good in the long run. So you really suffered in those 1 hour races. It had some very big competitive disadvantages actually. But when there was a time when it suddenly was kind of OP or had a BOP advantage, I don't think in Racing we ever had the OP levels that ACC had. It wasn't that severe, but it was noticeable. I just said, guys, why are you complaining I'm driving an OP car? I always drove it. Here's proof. And then you had like 200 races with this car. So I just stuck to it whatever came. And I'm happy that we don't have those OP talks in RENNSPORT. I think our baseline BOP, yes, commentators talking about BOP yet again, I know. It is in our contract that we talk about it. Nothing I can do against it. But the BOP in RENNSPORT, of course, we don't have the biggest GT3 grid yet. But even apart from that, I think all the cars are very close together. And you have a shot at winning with every car. So you can really pick what you want and what fits your driving style. Or just what you think looks the best. That's how I went as a kid and never really changed from that afterwards. So, yeah, the cars are all in fighting contention, and that's of course what we referred to quite some time ago, and what you brought up earlier today with four different cars in the top four and stuff.
Yeah,
It's really a novelty to have, I think.
yeah, it's something we've kind of done on broadcast since the beginning, really, of spotting when it's different, the same number of manufacturers in the top number of positions. And it has always been really good to see it whenever it happens, because it does show that the cars are fairly even. I think you have to be an incredibly close field of like skill level wise for it to start to matter the slight differences between the cars. But even then, I know Porsche Commando had a bit of a run of victories yesterday in the R1. But there were teams out there, other teams out there also used the Porsche, and they didn't come second and third. So the BOP seemed pretty good to me.
So Alizai with a big hit into the barrier at Galgenkopf again. That was nasty, but it seems like he avoided the worst and is now putting a lap on Bill Wild. But
Ali Zahir, certified steering rod hater.
it seems like it. But yeah, let's hope it didn't put too much damage on that front left, so that he can finish this race without any further issues. But yeah, I mean, I think R1 is a good example. You have 48 drivers pretty much on the same level. And I know the BOP to a certain extent from the cars, and well, I'm of course not allowed to share it with you. I can tell you it's in very, very small margins. Like the difference is so small that a regular driver wouldn't notice it in any form.
Bit of a shame not to see any of the pro teams taking the Audi, but it is a car which is no longer supported in the actual GT3 racing in real life, so I suppose it makes sense.
It's it. I just like 5 minutes or 10 minutes earlier I talked about that I chose Audi back then DTM days and stuck to it. And yeah, it really hurts to see Audi pulling back from motorsports like this. Of course, they want to pursue their dreams of Formula 1. And if they want to do so, okay, I will still be mad that they won't have any more R8s in the GT3 series. I think they announced or leaked something that a new R8 generation might come, even though after they said no R8, and I think also the RS3 was on its last generation, or the TT, one of them. But yeah, I hope to see them back. Maybe they will revert the decision. And we still have some very cool Audis in the world of motorsports, in GT3 racing. Most notably at the Nordschleife Phoenix, still sticking to the Audi, which I think is amazing. And also an Audi coming back to the DTM, which was just reported yesterday or 2 days ago, that Ricardo Feller with Mainboard will bring an Audi to the DTM. And those are all private efforts, so huge props to them. There's no real luxury with customer support to my knowledge. Apart from the obvious, like, parts supplying and stuff.
Enrico Bräuninger in chat right now, saying, I wonder if any M2 racing is coming soon that you can stream. I'm pretty sure there's none. There's no M2 racing anytime soon, is there, Lena?
Let my dementia check. Of course, tomorrow will be M2 and Praga at Hockenheim for 45 minutes. Talked about earlier in the stream. Racing action will resume tomorrow with 2 very different cars from the GT3. And the M2 will, of course, also be the opening round of Season 2 in RNL. So in 2 weeks, you shall have the M2. As Dominik Ladler went past Władysław Pironkiewicz. So a few lapping errors.
I think something's happened with Julian Segura, as his last lap was an 8:37. Ali Zahir is now 80 seconds behind him.
8:37 isn't slow enough to be a pit stop, so I wonder what it was. Because I can't really spot any obvious damage.
No. Or nothing that I could say for sure that he didn't have before. They're saying that his steering wheel is at an odd angle.
So maybe he did put it into a wall, and that could be very interesting if he decides to go into the pits. 80 seconds. There's should be 3 more laps after this. Does he lose more than 25 seconds a lap?
The gap now seems to be 77 seconds, so it's coming down pretty quickly.
But if he repairs damage, that's even at its best, let's say, 30 seconds of repairs. So he would come out 20 seconds in front of Ali Zahir?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
We had that before. Oh, just now I noticed that his right-hand mirror is missing. Which would coincide with rear right tire damage, or front right, because it doesn't seem to be on the rear axle, but rather on the front.
I didn't even know you could lose wing mirrors.
You can. You can also lose the whole door, which was...
I know you can lose doors. I've seen that a few times.
But I think it's front end suspension damage, not rear end. Oh, and very wide into Brünchen.
That's a good one for a YouTube compilation.
Might end on some channel. There are actually stickers of the channels uploading those videos on the like metal fences and stuff, where you can scan a QR code and get to their channels. But Ali Zahir, yeah, another 4 seconds. Do you come in? Do you not come in? 3 more laps, 25 seconds. Or let's say 28, you can lose a lap.
Difficult choice, isn't it? It's the type of head maths you're not really wanting to be doing when you're trying to race a car.
I mean, when you repair the damage now, you would be at best 20 seconds in front of Alizai, if you don't change tires, that is.
Yeah.
But 20 seconds over 3 laps, even with a repaired car compared to Alizai, is the same difficulty as keeping an 80-second gap with a damaged car, I'd say. So,
Yeah.
what does Julian Chicot decide to do?
Yeah, he's very much got his steering at an angle here, coming down Dottingerhohe.
Yeah, it's hard to see, but you can see the left hand up. So it's right hand down by 30 degrees-ish.
Yeah, that's what I would have said, about 30.
Of course,
The gap between them is now 68 seconds, so it's coming down.
He's coming in. Julian Chicot is coming in.
Into the pits.
You also, of course, you don't only have to think about the gap to Alizai, but with damage like this, where it's easy to lose the car, especially under higher speeds, you don't want to risk it that late in the race.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And he's only repairing the car.
Yeah, he's not fixed. He's not changing tires, so that'll keep his pit stop nice and short for a repair stop. I can see Alizar here on the map, about halfway down Dottingerhohe.
Also, don't be confused by the timer. It's, of course, 102 minutes, not only 2. But Julian Chicot is rolling again, as Alizai is now going through Hohenrhein. What is the gap? It's lower than 10 seconds. It's 9.
Yeah, it's about 9 seconds right now.
So with 3 more laps, can he keep the distance up?
I think he just repaired suspension as well, because he's still got some scuff damage on his front of his car.
Yeah, true, there's some. But I don't think that will particularly slow him down. It doesn't seem like it's anything that really hunts him. There's also a bit to the right-hand quarter panel. You don't really see it on that gold paint, do you? It's very hard to spot.
But yeah, I mean, it's only some scrapes. It's nothing major.
Of course, still lacks that right-hand side mirror.
Oh, yeah.
Since he didn't repair aero damage. But maybe that's making him more aerodynamic. So...
Tactical mirror removal.
I actually wonder how much that would mess with the aero of a GT3. Because, of course, the mirrors are as aerodynamic as they can be, as they have to be. And with the rest of the car, you kind of take mirrors into the account in terms of airflow. But no mirror should theoretically make the airflow better.
I wonder if they use them to generate downforce.
I wouldn't be surprised if that... I think the... what was it called? The AMG GT3X? The one they sent around Bathurst and all those tracks. I think that one actually had like wing flaps around the mirrors. Or at least where the mirrors were supposed to be. I think it had digital ones or something. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, there are cases of that. If you look at Formula 1 cars, of course, they have those flaps around them to minimize the aero disturbance they create. And some of them even had basically wings on them, which then were outlawed.
Yeah.
Might have been Sauber or Williams or something. But gap 7.3 seconds now. And shrinking.
It'll probably take a couple of sectors for Julian Chicot to get back up to pace, especially after having such a wonky steering wheel for the past 10 minutes or so.
In the end, this is still for the last podium position. And while it not be enough for Ali to surpass Chico in the standings, it will get him closer. And maybe if Chico would do another mistake, which I'm not hoping here, but if it should happen, that could still mean that Alizar can surpass him in this sense, because they're still only 6 points apart from each other.
And gaining another place would definitely help with his battle with Timothy Frisch as well.
Yeah, because Timothy Frisch, of course, still up in second. Although he's picked up some more damage because the front right is a bit open to airflow.
Oh yeah.
So,
going for some interesting weight loss late in the race.
it's definitely a car where you can see it has been raised, even apart from the damage on the front right. If you take a look at the right hand side, there's some bruises.
Yeah, it's not a factory fresh Porsche, that's for sure.
And just for Joachim Thunder, the race timer says 7 minutes, but it's 107. So we got 12 minutes left on the clock, 12 and a half.
And he's out here still closing up. He's now hovering around the 6-second mark. So he's still catching up with Julian Chicot.
You can see him on occasion, just for short moments, but if that will...
Madler currently out on, just about to leave the GP circuit actually, so 2 laps left.
I think Bill Wild or Timothy Frisch is in the pits changing tires and repairing, so using the opportunity. But Pionkovic is still driving, but Bill Wild has parked it.
Yeah.
He's called it a day.
Unfortunate to get so close to finishing.
Still very respectable. He stayed in this race for more than 1.5 hours.
Oh, they did, definitely, for sure. That was it was a thank you, Bill, for taking part.
Timothy Frisch out of the pits again. Maybe he's giving it the cleanup for the podium finish, for the podium photo. Like the Corvettes at Le Mans in, I think, like 2016. Oh, Alizar going wide in Schwalbenschwanz. High on the curb again. It lost him about a second, but kept it out of the barrier. That will be a blessing to Julian Chico, because the gap is back up to 6.5 seconds now.
Fresh out and driving, and fairly comfortable as you'd expect. He had a big gap to Julian Chico, so he had no need to drive around with half a Porsche.
Well, let's check on the lap times, because it's also been asked by Maximilian Dehn in the chat. But yeah, lap times currently, of course, hard to tell with the pit stops in the last lap. But Dominic Ladler still lapping in the 8.11s, his best lap time in 8.11.1. Other best lap times are Timothy Fritsch 8.12, Alizai 8.14, and Julian Chico 8.16. Alizai's last lap around was in 8.22. Only 2 more laps to do, including for this man, Władysław Pironkiewicz. One of the 2 rookies in this race. And not too far away from scoring his... Well, not his first points, because he already scored points, but... Oh, and Julian Chico has spun.
Yep. I was looking at Ali Zahir's camera, so I didn't see it until Ali Zahir went past him.
Just noticed the yellow flags, and suddenly there was a gold Porsche on your screen. Gold BMW on your screen. Why did I say Porsche? There was no Porsche involved in any of this, but... Well, that's Julian Chico down to 4th and out of the podium positions now. Bit anticlimactic, maybe?
Lost a couple of seconds. Yeah, I was looking forward to the battle there, Saj, but the gap between them is mid 4 seconds right now. So you never know. Julian Chico might be able to pull it back.
Especially with Pironkiewicz now about to being lapped by both of them. And of course, it's the same old story, no matter how well somebody gets out of your way. Radoslav usually does. It's... In this case, it was a bit lucky with the position, but on the Nordschleife, he will always lose time, usually. Except for maybe for the Dörtinger Höhe, or if you have the space through this portion of the track, but you can't just throw down the inside, like on many other tracks. And you still have to respect the other person's race.
It's going to be in a lot of corners when it comes to Julian Chico trying to get past, probably. So he might have a bit of a harder time of it than Ali Zahir just did.
Especially through this portion, it's very narrow. I mean, even although the track is the same width all around the track, basically. Only some minor changes. Nicely done there by Pironkiewicz, though. It on some places is just narrow due to the track, the way the track behaves. Like Foxhole, you have left after right after left. You don't have 2 lanes there to go through. You have 1 lane, maybe 2 in multi-class, but that's about it. Ladler now on his way to start the final lap of this race. .7 kilometers from his 4th win of the season and another championship to his name.
He is racking up those championships. It's getting more and more difficult to introduce him in races.
The list is getting longer. Last lap, an 8:13. I presume at some point also the tires just slightly giving him. Gap between Chico and Alisa is still growing slowly, so I guess unless something happens now, Alisa should be able to keep that position, which makes it 3 manufacturers in the top 3. But apart from that, I mean, Alisa, what a roller coaster this race was for him. From nearly making it to P1 in the first 2 laps to dropping down to, I think it was actually last on track for some moments,
yeah, he
basically.
was last on track.
Being stuck on the curbing, collecting Timothy Fridge in the process, to now fighting his way back up into P3.
Yeah, it's been a great race for Ali. I'm sure he'll be pretty, although not as happy as he could have been, I'm sure he'll be pretty happy with the result he got by just sticking to it and grinding away lap after lap.
I'm not sure if he will be entirely happy with how his race went.
No, but I think he can be satisfied with his own performance.
Yeah, he can be definitely happy of the fight back he gave and what he salvaged from it.
The gap closing up a little bit to Julian Chico in the last couple of sectors. So it is doing that accordion effect that we've talked about so much during these races.
Timothy Fridge, meanwhile, also made his way onto the last lap. Will be interesting to see what his final lap will be in terms of lap time with the fresh tires on.
Yeah. Yeah, this lap time obviously affected by his last pit stop.
We've talked.
Yeah, it'd be. Yeah.
Yeah, what?
No, carry on.
Kind of still have to work on that, even though we do this for a year now. Even though it's not as bad as with some other people. Not looking at particular names. Just as at a particular country with whom I seem to commentate a lot. But anyway. Yeah, we've been talking about it through the race with the tire drop off and that it's kind of unknown whether you should take the gamble, whether not. And I think this is also very interesting for us to learn about the new tires, how they behave over longer time. And well, I think it's fair to say they're doing quite well for themselves.
We do test them on longer runs in testing before they're released, but I don't think anyone's ever driven 2 hours on one set of tyres.
I think at least most of the drivers haven't, indeed, so...
gap between Sicko and Zahir seems to have opened up a little bit again.
Fluctuation in full effect.
Zahir's last lap was a 24, so almost 10 seconds slower than his fastest lap, because he's obviously carrying a little bit of damage on that AMG. Which, on a lap this big, with so many fast sections, a little bit of aero damage kind of adds up.
It makes it more noticeable, that's for sure.
Dominic Ladler, you've got on screen right now, just being smooth as always, really. Just seems to be another Sunday jaunt around the ring for him.
Now one final time through the small carousel. Dominic Ladler only 4 turns away from his first Nordschleife championship, his 4th win of the season, and another flawless performance. He will end the season and his victory margin increasing even more with that win, collecting another 18 points with bonuses. Just run a calculation with the points to how the standings would be if things don't change, which don't see really happening except for Zion Shiko maybe. And this has Dominic Ladler win the championship with 83 points over Julian Shiko on 51 and Alizar on 47. So even if Alizar were to pass, no wait, he is passed, but like, even if he were to pass Timothy Fridge now, it wouldn't be quite enough for him. He would still be 1 position short of Julian Shiko.
Yeah.
Can't talk anymore already.
It's been a long time talking, Lena. Don't worry about it. We're not ready for a 24-hour just yet.
I think for 24 we need at least some company in the commentator booth. And some more topics to talk about.
I'd be interested to see if you could last a 24-hour commentary session with Remco without snapping at him.
That is very unlikely, because a 1-hour session would already bring you to that point.
Yes, I'm very glad I don't have to do 5 hours commentary for R1.
But at least we don't have to do the camera work meantime.
Yeah, that's true.
Would make it a bit easier perhaps on us. Timothy Fridge down the Dörtinger Höhe. He will also end the season strongly, and I mean that second place is very well earned in that race. He will move up into 5th, just behind Enrico Bräuniger. And he's been building up a bit of a ladder in the last 3 races. He collected 9 points in round 3, 12 points in round 4, and now 15 points in round 5, which are always 3-point increments. Gives us the flash, and across the finish line he goes.
Well done, Timothy. You can go and have yourself a drink now. Alizar here, just opening the gap up a little bit more to Julian Sikor. The gap's about 7 seconds. So he must be feeling pretty comfortable.
I wonder with the new knowledge obtained during the season, and especially during the GT3 races, which of course became longer over the course of the season, how they will approach the next season's races. If they will go for more attack, knowing that Dominik Lala is very strong on pace, and maybe even with the prospect of Maximilian Dehn returning to the season, or Remco Mayor, or rather just turning down the pace and going for a safe approach, maximizing points and trying to capitalize on other like Timothy Fridge has, because he's collected a good amount of points in the last 3 races.
Yeah, I think you need kind of like a healthy respect for both approaches, don't you, coming into a season like season 2 of the RNL. And knowing when to switch between the two is kind of a key thing that I'm not very good at.
That's where we are commentating and not driving. But Alizar, 7 seconds in the end to Julian Sikor out of the final turn. Podium position. Can be proud of that.
It was a brilliant fight back from last place by Alizar here. Well done.
And Julian Sikor, he's vice champion. Celebrates in style as well. I think that was very neat.
It was a good sideways drift.
Indeed. And Pironkovic, he has quite a lot of damage to the car, it has to be said. But he is finishing this race, and I think that's very respectable for the first time driving on the Nordschleife, driving a race of this magnitude. It really is a performance to make it to the finish. And only 1 lap down as well. I've seen plenty of drivers come and go on this track, but for a first race on here, I think that is pretty good.
Oh, definitely. And it's great to see him sticking it out right until the end. Him and Billy Wild, it was great to see you both joining up and taking part.
And it also puts him 10th in the standings alongside Dennis Kurzer and in front of Jason Kizar. So definitely worth sticking it out to the end.
Taking it nice and gentle there with his negative front splitter that he seems to have right now.
Will definitely have some impact. But that was Season 1 of the RENNSPORT Nordschleife League. Here you have another look at what's coming towards you in Season 2. And yeah, I think to close off this season, first off, congratulations to Dominik Ladler for winning the championship overall, and also to Chico and Zahir to finish on the podium. But I'm excited for season 2 because I think with the way we implemented the new wishes from the drivers and the general feedback and observations we did over the season, I think it could lead to a very interesting season 2, especially with the 2.4 hour race coming later in the season in June.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick a moment from this season that you'd say kind of puts it all together, what would you say?
I think it might have been Julian Chicot's fantastic dotting a hoe move, where he gave the position up just before dotting her and then drafted it back again. I think that was a pretty fantastic move.
Damn, you took my pick. No,
Aha.
it was really a fantastic move. I mean, one thing that kind of puts it together for me is just the fact that Elden Lunio ran out of fuel in race 1. Just to put together how unusual this season was. But in terms
Yeah.
of performances, I think you could put in any performance from Ladla 1, 2, 3, or 5. Flawless races.
That's fair.
I think the fight between him and Chico in round 3 particularly was amazing to watch. I mean, unfortunately, it was the race where I kind of had to leave you alone for some time, but it was amazing to watch. It was two drivers on very similar level of skill fighting it out for such a long time. And basically those being the two ends. Very unusual reasons to not finish a race, but great eye-level fighting on the other end that lasted for a long time. So I sure hope to see more of that in season 2.
There's been some great racing this season, that's for sure, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it in season 2.
But with all that said, I think it's time to say goodbye for tonight. We will see each other tomorrow for the RCE. And we will have a trailer for the next season, of course, to close up this chapter. Until then, have a great night. See you all tomorrow. And until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.